Hey, it's Don Skaggs with Empowered Inventing, where we help you help other people by taking your great idea and opportunities, combining the two, and helping to turn them into real, tangible things like products and businesses. Now, you know, there's probably one of the things that is probably more exciting than anything else for inventors and entrepreneurs is a trade show. Finding your market, finding in just about every industry, I don't care what industry you're in. And for our business, we were in a little niche part of the medical laboratory called the histology or histopathology department. So it was this little niche place, and they had a whole trade show. It's called the Society for Histotechnology. And they'd have a big trade show every year. So every industry has a trade show. And going to those trade shows can be absolutely just amazingly exciting because you feel like you finally arrived, you're at the big leagues, you're out there competing with customers, and you're getting your feet wet and you're understanding the market, and that's very, very important, by the way. But a lot of inventors and entrepreneurs will make the mistake of the first thing they want to rush out and do is go buy a big booth and launch their booth at the trade show. And a lot of times you can end up spending a lot of time and money early when you're not prepared. And I want to talk to you about some preparation things that you need to do before you plunk down that $2,000, $5,000, whatever amount of money it is for a little 10 by 10 booth at a trade show, because a lot of times you can do that, you can spend that money, and you wind up with nothing to show for it. Not that many no customers, and because you're not planning for it right and you're not executing it right. So I want to talk to you, just want to give you a few pointers about how to do that and how to do it right. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is be sure and have a good perfected prototype. Now, we talk about having two types of prototypes at Empowered Inventing. We actually put it into two categories. We've given them two very unique names. One is what we call the Franken type, and that is your early prototype. That's the one where you're testing it to prove to you that it actually works and actually does what you're thinking in your head that it's supposed to do. Because you came up with the idea in your head, you wrote it all down on paper, and if you're supposed to, if you've not done that step yet, you've got to do that step yet before you get to the prototype. And you write it all out. Maybe you draw it out even. And then you start building this prototype. But you don't go spend thousands of dollars having some company build you a prototype unless you can get a company to do it cheaply. And by cheaply, I mean within your means and not using up all your means, or all your means for that and a patent. A lot of times people, they've got a prototype, they got a patent, and they think, oh, I'm ready to go. Well, no, you're just getting started. You don't even know if you have a market yet. You gotta go to the trade shows. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because you want to have a really good prototype. That first Franken type, we call it a Franken type because you've snuck out to the graveyard of broken products and spare parts. You've used glue sticks and duct tape. The result is a prototype that only an inventor could love. It is ugly as all get out. One of these days I want to do an ugly prototype contest and have everybody submit their ugliest prototype. We're going to pick the ugliest one. We need to do that pretty soon, actually. I think that'd be pretty cool. So, but you make that prototype ugly on purpose almost, but you're just testing it for functionality. And because the first thing it's going to do is fail. You're going to say, huh, I didn't know it was going to do that. Or I didn't know it wasn't going to do that. Or I didn't realize it worked like that if I did that. So you'll start refining it. You want to do that as cheaply as possible. You want to do that with $5, $10, and $20 bills, not $100, $500, and $1,000 bills. So start iterating those prototypes, the Franken type, early, and you get that humming, you get that going really, really good, and then you move to what we call the demo type. And that's the one where, okay, I got the functionality all humming and going really well here. Now I'm going to make one that's pretty, it's presentable. Maybe it's not manufacturing ready yet, but I can demonstrate it, and that can set you up for a licensing agreement where someone else maybe does the manufacturing for you. Maybe you're going to make them yourself. Maybe you'll outsource them to make yourself. And there is a manufacturability component to that, and again, we teach that in a lot of our classes. But for purposes of this video, I want you to think of the Frankentype to get it ready, and then the demo type prototype to show it, and that's where you would demonstrate it at a trade show once you're properly protected yourself through a provisional patent. And again, we cover that in a lot of different things, including our classes. But you've got that ready, so you want to have that ready. You just don't want to have something on a napkin sketch and go to a trade show, and you don't want to have something that's unprotected and take it to a trade show either. That's pretty foolhardy as well. And again, there's cheap ways, just like there's lean ways to do a prototype. There are lean ways to protect your idea, so you can go out there, but minimizing your risk. Now, you want to have that prototype ready to go, but there's a lot more that you have to prepare for before you approach that trade show. Another thing you want to do is already figure out your costs and your margins. You want to figure out what it's going to sell for. You're going to want to figure out what your costs are to manufacture. What does it cost me to make 100 of these? What does it cost me to make 1,000 of these? What does it cost me to make 100,000 of these? You have to figure these things out, and that's the manufacturing ability part that I was talking about. You think, okay, to make these in mass, small quantities to large quantities, what are my costs going to be? Because a person who may want to license it, a person that may want to buy it, if you're doing a distribution model like we did, you want to know what the distributors needs to buy it for it, and you need to know what it sells for retail in the market. So there's all these factors and all these levels you've got to know. So you have to be sure you understand your costs. You got to count the cost first. And you've got to do some math. You've got to know the numbers. What's my price going to be? If I'm going to license this, am I going to license it for 7%? Am I going to license it for 5%? Am I going to license it for 1%? Or yeah, what's my selling price going to be? And what's my selling price going to be to these different groups? The distributor, maybe a wholesaler, maybe a retail market. Maybe you go out in the retail market first for a certain price, and then but you have that distributor price already figured out, and you have your margins calculated. So you have to have all these things vetted really before you get out there. Just so you know, so you don't go out there and say, oh yeah, it's the price is $5, and then suddenly later you find out, oh, it's going to cost $6 each to make these. I don't think the math works very well for that. So have these things figured out in advance. Louis Pasteur said this best. He said, fortune favors the prepared mind, and you have to do the preparation to do this. Now lastly, but most importantly, you have to be able to put the odds in your favor when it comes to trade shows. And I'm talking strategic plans here. So, because you could spend a lot of time and a lot of money at a trade show and just with nothing to show for it. So think of trade shows as an extension of just good old-fashioned boot leather, out there knocking on doors, out there shaking hands, out there talking to people. Think of it as just an extension of that. It's where you've got all your customers, potential customers, all in one big room. So it's a good place to do that. But I like this strategy, especially for the bootstrapped inventor or entrepreneur. And that's, don't go buy a booth first thing. Go as an attendee. If they let you in the door, if they let you in for free, that's fantastic. If there's a much smaller cost, and there should be, to get in the door, then get in the door that way, but just go and be a fly on the wall. This is part of that again, you're getting information, and the contacts you make, and the hands you'll shake. And by the way, when you go up to an inventor, to a booth, a potential customer or distributor, Don't tell them you're an inventor. Just say I'm a product developer. Stephen Key actually taught me this. It's a great piece of advice. He said don't tell them that. Tell them you're a product developer, and that makes you sound better. That makes you sound more professional. In the professional world, they think of inventor. They think of Doc Brown from Back to the Future, the guy with the wild hair and the wild-eyed inventor with the tinfoil hats on. You, I mean, you let your imagination run wild when you say the word inventor. Not everybody does that. I think inventor's kind of coming back into favor, but I think in professional circles, a lot of times it's best to use the word product developer. I really agree with Stephen on that. So go around and talk to these people and shake a lot of hands, have a lot of business cards, and just say, well, I'm developing some products and I think they might be a good fit, and I'd love to talk to you more. You're making initial contacts here. You're making those, I'm getting your information, you're getting my information. The biggest piece to a trade show isn't the work you do. You're exhausted when you get back. Gosh, you know, you've walked this big giant floor, this big giant hall, into all of these booths and met all of these people, and you're exhausted when you get back. And you know, traveling's exhausting too. But the real hard work, and the one that everybody forgets to do, is the follow-up. You come back with that big bag of business cards and all the people and the notes you'd taken from each day of all the people you'd met and who was interested in what. Following up on that consistently is the most important part, in my opinion, of doing a trade show. So get in there cheap. Don't buy a booth first thing. Go in and immerse yourself into what that market and who that market is. That's going to teach you things. So when you are ready for a booth, then you can go in there really smart, really targeted, and really make the most for your money. Now, let me go one step further. Let's say you're in New York and the trade show's in California, and I just can't afford the plane fare, Don. There's no way I can go. Or the entry fee, even for attendees, is just you know, it's out of my budget. By the way, and you should have a budget for your idea, startup, or invention, by the way. So let's say it's out of your budget. All of these trade shows, all of these trade industries have websites. Oh, look, here is our new trade show we're going to have this next April. And look, here's our exhibitor list from last year. All of a sudden, you've got them all. And you can make phone calls, you can do emails. It's a treasure trove of information. We didn't have this kind of information back in the early 90s. You didn't have this stuff at your fingertips back then. We have more tools today, and I'm always so sick of people that say, oh, it's just so hard today to get out there and connect with people, and just nobody pays attention, and blah, 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 blah. No. You guys obviously did not live in the 80s or 90s, so you have no idea how hard it used to be. Before, when you wanted to research something, you had to go to the library and pull out one of these big green books called the Thomas Register and look stuff up to find out who made what. But now we can just go on the internet and it's instantaneous. There are more tools at inventors and entrepreneurs' fingertips than we have ever had before. So I want you to make the most of those. And that's why I'm giving you these tips today. I hope they're helpful for you. Again, I'm Don Skaggs, Empowered Inventing. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure and subscribe. Be sure and click that notification bell. And I will look to see you at the next meeting, workshop, class, or on the next video.